Today, on this episode of The Crossover, we will be discussing the future of Miami art, Miami MoCAD, with Harvard Law graduate Marilyn Holifield. Learn about the Miami Museum of Contemporary Art of the African Diaspora and how this new and innovative museum will blend art and technology to create new community networks and new contexts for identities throughout South Florida. Much more on this episode of The Crossover. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be speaking with Marilyn Holifield about Miami MoCAD. Super exciting new art initiative. Oh, wow. Hey, how are you, Marilyn?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good.
Excited and honored to be
See how,
with
see how smooth that was? That was a great login. I'm glad it was smooth.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the help.
That's perfect. I'm going to just do a brief introduction while everyone's logging on, but we have the pleasure of speaking with Marilyn Holifield today. She is an internationally recognized lawyer, senior partner at Holland Knight, and a Harvard Law graduate. As background, Marilyn is a litigation practitioner that has represented numerous high-profile individuals. She's also received numerous awards, accolades, all related to her law practice and professionalism, as well as civic engagement. She was named by Black Enterprise magazine as one of America's top employment lawyers. The Miami-Dade County Bar Association honored her with its highest award, the Judge David Dyer Award for Smith Award, the highest honor bestowed to lawyers who demonstrate a deep commitment to equal justice, public service, and excellent client service. Outside the firm, she has many activities, including she serves on the executive committee of the Harvard Board of Overseers and the University of Miami Board of Trustees. She has also served as a member of the House of Delegates of the American Bar Association and Executive Council of the Florida Bar Labor. She has many passions outside of law. We'll be talking about one of those today. Very exciting. The future of Miami art, Miami MoCAD. So again, Marilyn, such a pleasure to speak with you. And again, thanks for joining us.
And thank you for honoring me with this conversation and that most kind and gracious introduction. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Let's start, I guess, with a little bit of background, a little bit of basics. What is Miami MoCAD? What does it stand for?
Miami MoCAD is the Miami Museum of Contemporary Art of the African Diaspora. It seeks to have a tech-forward vision, which will connect the mother continent, Africa, as well as its diaspora through contemporary art.
And people might say, you know, you're a lawyer. What's your tie to this project? How did you get involved?
I can't remember when I was not involved in some form of the arts. When I was growing up in Tallahassee, in the backyard of Florida A&M University, Dr. Samela Lewis, who passed away recently, she is known as the godmother of African-American art history, started the fine arts department, the art department at Florida A&M, and conducted drawing classes for kids in the community. So as far back as being a kid, going to FAMU for drawing classes, then studying to be a classical pianist, and then thinking I would be a poet, and then protesting in college for Black studies and Black culture, being a part of the academic canon. I've had an interest in the arts, I've had an interest in art history, and I've had an interest in bringing people together through the arts.
Now, you mentioned a little bit there, just a hint, but your background and your experience, you know, what you've been through have been very moving, and they really tie into this project. Tell us a little bit about what Miami MoCAD means to you personally. You know, what does it represent? Why is it important?
Miami MoCAD may be an extension of my early thoughts that the European canon was too narrow when it denigrated the art and culture and history of people of Africa, the continent, as well as its diaspora. And that's what led to the protests back in 1969 with my college schoolmates. And we wrote a collective memoir about our protests to expand the academics at Swarthmore College, right outside Philadelphia, to expand its academic program to include Black studies. And it also, and I think there might be a zigzag line from those protest days to these days when I'm a senior partner at Holland Knight, more mellow, more I've lived longer. And now I think that if we can create this museum that is first class, premier, and it can become a pilgrimage cultural gathering space, not only for people within Miami-Dade County, but people outside of Miami-Dade County, and that people will be able to come to Miami and see this museum, gather with people from inside the diaspora and outside of the diaspora, and gain appreciation for the creative genius of Black people locally and from around the globe.
Now, this is obviously a major project. Who are the major players that are involved in developing it and taking it from a concept into reality?
This is a big idea, a big dream that has moved along incrementally. And it started when a young man, maybe he's not so young now, but he was my law clerk 20 years, I don't know, some years ago. He was a student at University of Miami Law School. And we've been friends for several decades now. And he's known of my passion and interest in art. And he approached me and said, Marilyn, it's time for Miami to have a premier museum dedicated to art of Black people, to create a cultural gathering space where Black people, white people, people of various nationalities and ethnicities can come together around the connecting forces of art and artists who are little known in the mainstream, but have created some of the most exciting art in the world.
And how far along is this project?
This project, we do not have a site, but we have been operating as a museum without walls. We have sponsored artist talks. We have sponsored a pop-up exhibit that was curated by Donna Marie Baptiste, titled Reconstructing Identity. We have co-sponsored exhibits with MoCAAD Miami, the Lower Art Museum at University of Miami, and a community gallery in Little Haiti, Griot's Gallery, to show our desire to collaborate in our development stage, but even after we become a full-fledged, what we will say, tech-forward hybrid museum, we believe in the benefit of collaborating with other institutions as an institution. At this point, we have two exciting things going on at the same time. One is a recently installed mural on the law office building of Miami's first Black judge, Judge Lawson E. Thomas, who was born in 1898. And can you imagine a Black man born in 1898, not that long after the Civil War and during the height of Jim Crow and repression? He came to Miami and he became a lawyer. I believe he became a lawyer and he became the first judge. And as an entrepreneur, before he became a lawyer, he built a building, and etched into the wall of the building is his name, Lawson Thomas. I tell people you have to tear the building down to get rid of his name. And our first mural, our project is called Veo Veo, I See, Mimwe, representing the major languages of our community. And this mural is equipped with QR codes. And the QR codes guide people to our mural website for the mural, but also guide people through oral histories that we took of seniors in our community and not so old people who knew about Lawson Thomas, who knew about life in Overtown in the 40s and 50s, who knew about the courage that it took to be involved in civil rights in 1940 and 1950, prior to the well-known civil rights era of Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. Miami had its own civil rights heroes, and we sought to lift up this hero who was our first Black judge.
Amazing. Give us a little bit of background on the finances behind this, because obviously starting a new museum that's state-of-the-art, high-tech, what's the financial footprint of something like that?
Well, glad you asked that question, because everybody can go to miamimocad.org and look for that donate button and donate. That's miamimocad.org. We are, the second part of what we're doing that's very exciting right now is the Knight Foundation in Miami-Dade County, as well as private donors, have allowed us to engage highly regarded master planning consultants, the Adrian Ellis AEA Consulting Group. And we're in the process of refining our vision, refining all the steps that it would take to create a robust virtual presence for the museum, as well as all the steps it would take to build out the museum. Some of those steps include fundraising, membership, stewardship, how to make sure that you are going in the right direction, doing the right things at the right time, and that result in a museum. So this is an exciting time for us to refine what we need to do to get there. Early on, the Knight Foundation helped us in funding the engagement of consultants to do a feasibility study. And that feasibility study gave us preliminary information about what it would take to build a premier museum and what it would take to operate a premier museum and how you would staff that museum. But that was pre-COVID. We're now post-COVID. We're now in a brand new world. And we always thought that we would merge art and technology to create new communities, new identities, and to expand accessibility on one hand, but also to innovate the museum experience on the other. The pandemic and the lockdown allowed us to accelerate our focus on technology. Our master planning consultants are assisting us in defining that tech plan, that digital plan, as we experiment with interactive experiences, for instance, as the museum mural project does. So what will it take? Lots of money.
Have you guys, what are your leading candidates for sites? Do you guys have any 2 or 3 sites picked out that are potential areas where you would build it eventually?
That's also a great question, and a question where we're exploring potential possibilities. As you can imagine, we would love we would love to be located in the historic Black community of Overtown, but we don't know exactly what the options will be as things unfold.
Yeah, I mean, you have to keep your options open. It's just such an amazing concept. And the overall vision and the mission is something that is so unique. Are there any other cities in this country that have similar museums that you guys are modeling your project after?
We would like to think that we're unique in many respects, but then we are similar to other museums. Are there other museums in the United States that are premier world-class museums with world-class facilities offering the world and their communities contemporary art of the African diaspora? The Studio Museum in Harlem started in 1968, but it has yet to open its premier facility. It has the gold standard of an artist in residency program. It offers wonderful exhibits, but its facility is in an old building that was repurposed to be a museum. There've been times when they have not been able to display all of the art for a particular exhibit because its size and capacity could not handle it. So it's been shut down for the last couple of years as it has finally obtained money and the vision to build out a world-class facility that is being designed by the lead designer for the National Museum of African American History and Culture up in Washington, D.C., Sir David Adjaye. The Studio Museum, in terms of its offerings, is the closest museum to what we envision. Where we are different is that we are instilling in our DNA technology. We are starting out from the beginning with technology as part of our footprint, as part of our definition, as when you think of Miami MoCAAD, when you think of the Miami Museum of Contemporary Art of the African Diaspora, you think of technology, you think of new ways of experiencing art. You think of, we like this, we don't know all the answers. We don't know what kinds of experiences our museum will innovate, but we love the fact that we are open to tapping the imagination of young people. We are focused on tapping imagination to think what has never been done before and to embrace what has never been done before so that new experiences will keep people coming back and coming back and coming back. In fact, the genesis of the Mural project started with young people. Our director of interactive media, Corbin Graves, was an intern before he became our director of interactive media for Miami MoCAAD. In the last semester of his graduate studies at University of Miami, he taught a course dedicated to Miami MoCAAD under the auspices of the very kind Dean Karen Wilkins and his professor Kim Grimfeder, who's head of the interactive media program at UM. His students designed 4 projects using interactive media so that they imagine as young people experiences that would bring technology and art together in new ways. The first project is our interactive mural project at the Lawson E. Thomas building, which, by the way, is located at 1021 Northwest 2nd Avenue in Overtown, down the street from the Red Rooster, around the corner from the Hampton Art Lovers, that gallery that's in the historic Ward rooming house, and not that far from the Little Greenhouse Grill. And it's right across the street from the Urban if you want to party at night after going to the mural. We believe that our incorporating technology at the very outset in our plans and not as an afterthought will make us different.
Well, tell us a little bit about how something new like Miami MoCAD would interact with traditional art festivals or events like Art Basel, Art Winwood. Are there any plans to integrate into those major events?
Yes. And as you know, or as you may know, we are a small operation, and Corbin Graves, who's our director of interactive media, wears many hats and does a phenomenal job. We, for the last few years, have been having what we call a kickoff to Art Basel program, the Sunday after Thanksgiving and the Sunday before Miami Art Week at Art Basel. We had a wonderful program the Sunday after Thanksgiving 2019, pre-pandemic, featuring Afro-Cuban artist Juan Roberto Diago. That was a collaboration with the Harvard Afro-Latin American Research Institute, the Harvard Cooper Gallery, which had exhibited the work of Juan Roberto Diago, and the Low Art Museum at University of Miami, which graciously hosted the Juan Roberto Diago exhibit. So the Sunday after Thanksgiving, we had an art talk with the curator Alejandro de la Fuente, and an art historian and curator who grew up with Juan Roberto Diago in Cuba, Barbaro Martinez. And I would say about 250 people came to that art talk and reception at the Low Art Museum. It was very diverse. It was very exciting. It was what speaks to the best of Miami. And this year, we will be collaborating with the Hampton Art Lovers, which manages a gallery at the historic Ward Rooming House, to have a Soul Basel kickoff the Sunday after Thanksgiving, which is the Sunday right before Art Week and Art Basel. And we have been blessed with the wonderful support of the Overtown CRA and the collaboration with Hampton Art Lovers to bring a Soul Basel kickoff to the Soul Basel week of events, but also to Art Basel.
Wow, Soul Basel sounds amazing. Looking forward to that.
November 27th, and we will be promoting it, and I invite you to come.
I'll gotta hit that up. That sounds amazing.
And people can subscribe to our newsletter. Go to miamimocad.org and subscribe to the newsletter and be aware of programs and opportunities to participate, like in the Soul Basel event that we are going to be hosting in collaboration with the Hampton Art Lovers on November 27th.
Now, you mentioned that Miami is a natural home for MoCAD. Why is this museum so important for the continued cultural growth of Miami?
Miami is the crossroads of the Caribbean and Latin America, and it has connections to Africa. In 2017, according to a Pew Research study, I believe it was 2017, 1/3 of the Black population in Miami is immigrant. The connections between the African diaspora and Latin America and the Caribbean are so strong that we are international at home, but we extend outward internationally too. And Miami is the perfect place because of its geographical position, but it's also the perfect place to create an institution that can sit at the table of the pantheon of exhibits, of museums and cultural organizations here in our town. When I think there's a lot of talk about diversity, and some people interpret diversity in terms of diversity within their organizations. There's also a concept in my mind of diversity within the institutional landscape. Is our institutional art landscape diverse? Meaning, do we have strong cultural organizations that are dedicated to, let's say, the African diaspora experience? For instance, like the Peter London Global Dance Company, which is headed by a man who is originally from Trinidad and ultimately moved to Miami. And I believe that there will be many opportunities to create bilateral programming, bilateral support among the various art organizations. And I think it's important for organizations to look beyond their conference rooms, to look beyond their boardrooms when they're thinking about diversity, but to look around them in the community. What diverse organization can those well-established organizations partner with to merge communities, to merge constituencies, and to merge ideas from institution to institution instead of just looking internally around the boardroom?
Well, let me ask you a very tough question. It's hard to summarize, but do you envision Miami MoCAAD having a positive influence on systemic racism?
Absolutely. I believe that the more opportunities that you can bring people together to increase understanding, to hear each other's stories, to understand that there is a whole lot that connects us, that we have many common denominators that perhaps we haven't even thought about. For instance, people don't think about the fact that during the Atlantic slave trade, 95% of the Africans who were forcibly removed from Africa landed in the Caribbean and Latin America. That's a big number. And there are so many touch points culturally that the various communities have. I believe very deeply that the more we can share and understand and appreciate the cultural offerings of people that we don't normally come into touch with, the more likely it is to increase understanding. The unfortunate part of our experience is that most of us grow up in a very Eurocentric environment. And that's what touched off our protests back at Swarthmore. We believe that a well-educated person should be educated not only about European civilization and European civilization, and the American story is the African American story, woven and embedded in beautiful ways, challenging ways, sometimes ugly ways, provoking ways, but ways that make us what we are today. So I believe art can be a connector of understanding, appreciation, and then just fun, because people get dance moves that can be shared and exchanged, as well as the art, the food. It's just fun to come together and create those new understandings.
I mean, I think just to summarize what you said, I think the more we learn about each other, the more we realize we're all the same. And so I think there's just a mutual understanding the more that people can share their backgrounds and their culture. So I completely agree with you. People have said Miami has transformed from a cultural wasteland into an art mecca in just over a decade. Do you agree with that statement?
Well, certainly Miami has changed over the last decade. It has signature cultural institutions. The New World Symphony is internationally regarded. The Perez Art Museum is a popular destination. The Bass Museum, Art Basel has transformed our sense of what happens in December. But this did not happen overnight, and this did not happen without intentional investments in our cultural landscape, let's say by the Knight Foundation, increasingly by the Miami Foundation, certainly by the Miami-Dade County and its Department of Cultural Affairs led by Michael Spring. Miami has been intentional in transforming its landscape, and it's something that I think all of us can be proud of. I think we will be able to stand taller and be even more proud if we are able to come together and support the creation of the Miami Museum of Contemporary Art of the African Diaspora.
Well, we are all very hopeful. I'm going to wrap it up here because I know you're super busy. Just last question, give us your crystal ball view. What do you see the next 5, 10, 20 years of Miami art development looking like?
I believe Miami art will become increasingly more tech focused. I think that Miami MoCAAD can be a leader in that effort, but the pandemic taught us that all institutions have to be nimble, and technology offers options to be nimble. I believe the art landscape will be more inclusive, not in the sense, as I said before, of just having diverse people sitting around and making decisions around the boardroom or being a part internally of an organization. But my sincere hope is that our community will come together and support institutions that are dedicated to, let's say, Miami MoCAAD or the Peter London Global Dance Company or the African Heritage Center or the Cuban Museum and other museums. It's unfortunate, though, that our history has made it extremely difficult for Black-led organizations to be successful. I think every day people try to work and strive to make a difference so that we can become more inclusive. So 5, 10 years today, even though there are challenges, even though there's a lot of noise in the room, I do believe that Miami will be a little more inclusive.
Well, Marilyn, hopefully it'll be a lot more inclusive. And again, thank you for this interview. It's an amazing initiative that you have about Miami MoCAAD. Seeing you and your colleagues push it ahead, I have no doubt that it's going to come and be reality soon. And the entire body of work that you've done during the course of your career has been tremendous. So kudos to everything that you've represented, everything that you've pushed forward. You really are a role model for everyone. So again, thank you for your time.
You're much too kind. Thank you, thank you. And we look forward to seeing you on Soul Basel.
Absolutely, I'll be there. Count me in. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Take care, Marilyn. Have a great weekend.
Bye, you too.